underdog thing is funny to me because, yeah, at the end of the day, we are defending our title when we're trying to repeat, which is so hard to do. But, no, I mean, I think we will use it as fuel. We will use it as motivation. But as far as the idea of, like, playing into it, you know, it's tough for me to say that is the case. I mean, I don't feel like we're underdogs. I think we match up well with them, and I think they say the same about us.
So even though Vegas has the Warriors heavy favorites, Kevin Love is not buying it. Will Cain back here with us. Good to see you. Stephen A., want to start with you here. Is this a good thing that Kevin Love's saying this?
I love it personally. I mean, listen, some would say that it's not that wise because you got Draymond Green who's going up against him, and he's been like kryptonite for Kevin Love, at least if last year's NBA Finals are indicative of anything. But I'm very proud of what I've seen from Kevin Love. Kevin Love has had to be a third wheel. Chris Bosh can speak to the adjustment, the difficulty of making that adjustment. And Kevin Love has been phenomenal in these playoffs as far as I'm concerned. I've seen him explode for plus 30 on several occasions. I mean, he's shooting very, very well from three-point range. I'm just looking at his three-point shots here. Throughout the series against Boston, there's only one time, twice actually, that he shot less than 42.9% from three-point range. Actually, that was the lowest. Everything else, 44%, 53%, 60%, 66% from three-point range. His marksmanship is incredibly impressive. You're going to have to step out and guard him. As a result, that's going to pull Draymond Green away from the basket and leave Golden State to the devices of the JaVale McGee's or the Jaja Pajulias. And by the way, don't be surprised if Tristan Thompson can be a sleeper in this series, because who the hell is going to keep him off the board? JaVale McGee is a novice, and Jaja Pajulia is entirely too slow to stay with Tristan Thompson. So keep your mind on that, and keep your mind on Kevin Love in terms of his board activity as well. But the way that he has been shooting, understanding he is that third wheel, if Kevin Love continues to shoot this basketball the way that he has been shooting it, that can very well be the X factor that could propel Cleveland to another championship over the Golden State Warriors. So I like the fact that he has spoken up. He is not shying away from the challenge. He's not shying away from the responsibility that comes with that $113 million contract that he signed. He's a nice guy. He's a good person who I think has taken a lot of unnecessary heat. And it's nice to see him speak up for himself and his teammates, because it gives me the impression that he believes he's ready to back it up. And he will need to do that in order for the Cleveland Cavaliers to win this series.
This is great. This is great that Kevin Love is enunciating this exact thing. Because when you have the best player in the world on one team, I mean, just you go to the playground, you got the best player in the park on one team. If that guy also has a crew, you think that team has a chance to win. In fact, usually they're favored. And the history of the NBA has been that's been precisely the case, especially when the best player in the world is the best by the measure that LeBron is. You know, he's not a typical best player in the world. He's a little bit better than the next best guy. He's way better than everybody. And he's crew deep on this Cavs team, not just because of Kyrie and Kevin Love, but also because of, the devil's in the details. All the way they revamped the bench. Darren Williams is your backup point guard now. The shooters everywhere LeBron can play with in the second unit, all that stuff. It's great that Kevin Love is enunciating this. And I think it also speaks to Kevin Love's self-image, the way he views himself. Let's not forget, there was a time when he was in Minnesota putting up those crazy numbers where he was considered by many smart basketball observers top 5 player, maybe a franchise player, one of the handful of players in the league worth way more than the max contract. And the question always with players who put up big numbers on bad or mediocre teams is, are those empty calorie numbers? Are those numbers empty calories, or are they meaningful? For example, you brought up Chris Bosh, Stephen A. He went from Toronto to Miami, and his numbers went away. But those weren't empty calorie numbers. He was just as great a player, at least, on Miami as he was in Toronto. The numbers reflected his greatness in Toronto, the wins in Miami, but he was the same guy. He was still a great player. Bosh is great. Kevin Love went to Cleveland, and it was like, well, that looked like an empty calorie player now that we see him on a great team. He's not a great player anymore. And he's come into his own little by little, grown more comfortable. Remember when LeBron said, don't try to fit out, just fit in, all these things? Kevin Love is saying with this comment, he's saying, I'm a great player. It's not just that it's LeBron, the greatest, and Kyrie's another great player, and I'm just kind of one of the crew. There's a big three here. And when the best player in the world has two other great players plus a crew, we match up with anyone. So I like that he enunciated what he did, and I think it reflects well in terms of how Kevin Love views himself.
Yeah, I mean, we're not going to get much disagreement on this. I mean, what do we want? We want him to say, I don't really know if we can meet up with these guys. They're pretty tough over there. We want them to believe in themselves. You got to believe in yourself if you're going to win it. But I like it for another level, too. I like it for the angry, the insulted aspect of it. I mean, look, one of the formulas we've seen play out at this point in sports is us against the world works. Insult works. I've seen it from Nick Saban, him instilling that in his teams over and over. To some extent, Greg Popovich. And, of course, the Picasso of this technique, of this psychology, the locker room maestro of us against the world, Bill Belichick. I mean, it doesn't matter if it's true, right? It's ridiculous that the Patriots think somehow everyone is doubting them, but he makes them believe that. And so if the Warriors are, if the Cavs are insulted and they're like, you're making us the underdog, that's going to be hugely advantageous for the Cavs. They need to harness that. They need to use it. But I think this is interesting. On the other side of that equation, what are the Warriors thinking? Ryan Russillo has talked a lot about this. This is a team that choked away a 3-1 lead. And the first chance they got at revenge, Christmas this past season, they lost to the Cavs again. So if the Warriors have an ounce of pride, they're doing the same thing. Everyone makes fun of us. We're a super team. We're not earning it. And we're the team that's choked away a 3-1 lead. So this sort of battle of the insulted ought to play out. And good for Kevin Love for A, feeling confident, and B, using this to his advantage.